So, welcome everyone. Yay. Hi, thanks for the wave. I appreciate that. So, I don't have slides because I'm so well prepared and I'm going to teach you guys about Unreal. Has anyone ever used Unreal Engine before? Got one, two, half, so like three, four, great. Starting to learn it? Sure, yeah. All right, there we go. That's a decent number of people. So I'm not going to claim to be a pro, but I'll teach you as much as I do know, and I'll try to walk through this as smooth as possible. So first off, Unreal Engine, that's on everyone's computers. I believe 5.2 and 5.1 is installed, but I know 5.2 is as a shortcut right now. So we're actually going to be using 5.2. Obviously, you're not going to do this for you, but on your personal machines, you can go to Epic Games, click on Unreal Engine, and then you can go to your library, and then you'll see different engine versions. You'll see different projects you have made. All your versions will appear on the top right over there, and then you can actually see your plugins you have installed. Also, there's a very cool marketplace, which has lots of different free assets or paid assets, depending on what you're going for. Like this is the Ultimate Game plugin, $150. I'm not buying that. You can just go click on the free tab and see, oh, look at all this cool free stuff that I can use. Some of the plugins here are actually very useful. Some of them are useless, but probably also, I'm just going to point this out now because I didn't know about this. They have free for the month where you can get very expensive, sometimes free assets. And it's just, honestly, I would just go every month and just buy them because they're free. You keep them forever. So I'm going to actually pull up my phone because I have a to-do list of a bunch of stuff I want to talk about. But first off, let's just start with the very simple, which is creating a project. So on your computers, you can just launch the 5.2 engine. Here, I'm going to go through Epic Games and actually launch it. If it's your first time launching the engine and you launch a project, and I believe it might do that on some of the computers, it will take like so long to compile shaders because it just loves to compile shaders all the time. And it'd be like, yeah, there's 6,000 shaders. You got to count through all of them before you can actually launch the engine. You'll be stuck at 45% for a very, very long time. Here they have a lot of different presets. So you can create a just blank project with no code. They have a first person template, which is very simply lets you walk around in first person. You can grab a gun right here, which you'll hold in your hands and they can shoot projectiles out. They have a little third person one, which is just a behind the back. That's actually the one we're going to use. Top down, it's just top down. Vehicle, if you want to drive a car, you want to do a vehicle components, they have a lot of starter code for you there. Handheld AR, virtual reality, self-explanatory. And Unreal Engine is also used for lots of different things like film, video, architecture, cars, simulation. But right now we're going to be talking about games, obviously, as we are IGDA. So right now we're just going to create a basic third-person project. On the right, you'll see some project defaults. You can choose Blueprint, which makes this a Blueprint project. You can make it also a C++ project. My personal recommendation is making a C++ project, and we're only going to be using Blueprint for this. C++ can be complicated, especially for people who don't know how to code. And the beautiful thing about Unreal is you don't have to know how to code. You just need to know basic logic, and you can actually start making things in Unreal Engine. It's also easier to switch a project from C++ to Blueprint than it is to go from Blueprint to C++. So that's why I usually create it in C++. Obviously, target platform, we're going to hit desktop or make them for our computers. If you want to make something for your phone, like it was AR, or you're making a mobile game, you can go mobile. Quality preset, maximum scalable. Maximum just sets the maximum preset, so it'll be running full throttle. Scalable is if you want to have some features disabled, but again, enabled by your hardware. So you want to make something a bit more low end that's not going to be taxing on your computer to make. I'm going to leave it at maximum right now. All these computers in this lab are very strong, so I'd recommend using maximum for those. We're going to enable starter content just so I don't have nothing to work with and we're struggling for a little bit to actually do anything. Ray tracing, I'm going to leave off. To be honest, don't know how ray tracing exactly works in Unreal Engine. I know how it works in graphics, computer graphics, but that's not what we're doing here. So let's name this workshop Weekend. Okay, can't have more than 20 characters. Another big thing. So we're gonna create a project. While this loads up, again, if anyone has any questions whatsoever, feel free to raise your hand, interrupt me. Now that we have an extra like 15 minutes, please ask as many questions as you can or want to. I will not be upset if you want me to stop showing what I'm showing. I really do encourage asking a lot of questions about this because for a lot of people, Unreal can be very confusing, especially for people who, like I started with Unity. I was a lot more comfortable with Unity, switched over to Unreal. I'm using Unreal for my MQP. Unreal was definitely a little scary when I first looked at it. And then one 12-hour tutorial later, I was like, okay, I feel a little bit more comfortable in here. So anyone have any questions right now on this load? This is going to take a while, by the way. Any at all?
Why did you switch over from Unity though?
I initially started using it for IGDA 4000. Tate was in that class with me. And Unreal, generally, in my opinion, is better for making 3D games. Especially, I think there's a difference in level of quality lighting compared to Unity. Unity I've used for 2D games mostly. I kind of prefer it for 2D games. If I was going to make a 2D game, I would never touch Unreal whatsoever. Also, if you load C++, you'll see Visual Studio open. We're just going to close it. But now for my MQP, we're deciding to make a 3D game. So I was like, I want to stick to Unreal. There's a lot of built-in things that Unreal has that makes it easy to develop a third-person game, where you can just make simple movement without even needing to write a line of code. Speaking of that, right now, if I just hit play, I'm already playing the game right now. I already have basically a working game. Can move around, can move the mouse around to move the camera. And with this is already a lot to just start off with, having character movement already set up. It's fantastic. So one of the big things about the UI, has anyone here used Unreal Engine 4 before? No. So great one. I prefer the Unreal 4 layout myself compared to Unreal 5. So if you actually go to Window, there's a lot of different things in Window, a lot of different menus you can pull up. If you scroll down to Load Layout, you'll see the default editor layout, which is what we're actually in right now, and the UE4 Classic layout. So I'm going to open that, and now we have our content browser here on the bottom. You can also pull it up with Control Space. That's another thing. If you wanted to use the default editor layout, you can just hit Control Space, and then you'll be able to pull up all the different assets in your project. But again, I just generally prefer to use the UE4 Classic layout. You can customize the layout yourself. You can save it and actually export it out to other people. So let's talk about a bit of basics. Just talk about the UI a little bit. So over here at the top, we have selection mode. This is actually what we're going to be using. Again, Unreal 5, as Justin mentioned, you can actually model in it. So you can change to landscape mode, which will actually change your tools that you have. So you can actually modify the landscape of the world you're working with. There's foliage, mesh paint, modeling, fracture, brush editing, and animation. You can animate as well in here. For game design, I just stick with using selection mode. So I can just select objects. I can move them around. That's just the basics. We're only going to really be covering the basics, and I'm not a modeler. I just program. So on the left side right here, we have this place actors window. We can see recently placed actors. We have just basic ones right here. We have lights, shapes, cinematic, media plate, visual effects, geometry, volumes, and all the classes. That's a lot of stuff here. We're not going to be covering all of this. Just below, as I mentioned, is the content browser. If we go to all right here, we can see all of the different folders in our project. So we have the C++ classes, which is called our workshop, weekend, woo character, and the game mode. And we can go to our content, and we can actually see just a bunch of different folders. Here we have characters. These are all made by the engine, and I click start a contest. We have a bit more stuff as well. We can see the mannequins. We can see their animations. We can see the materials they use, the meshes, skeletal meshes, and their just skeleton themselves. Here we have some rigs. We have some textures. And we're just gonna go back. Here we have third person, which is actually the project that we started off with. Here we have the blueprints, which is the blueprint of the character. Here we have our input system, and here we have the maps, which a map is basically the level we're working with. So this entire thing right here, this is the map. This is a map. So moving on to the right, we have the outliner. For the people who have used Unity, I believe this is similar to the inspector, which you usually see on the left-hand side of your screen, which this explains what exactly is in a scene. You can actually create folders to segment everything out. So you can see there's a block folder, which has all these different cubes right here, building this kind of center platform. We have block 2, which again, it builds these. And one of the great things that you can and should be doing is organizing your code. Please, for the love of God, organize. Here we have lighting. We have different things like directional light, exponential height fog. It's one of the big things. When you create a scene, there's about 3 essential items you need in order to start seeing things. One of them being a directional light. If you have no light, you can't see anything. I believe if we turned off the light in here and the sun, we'd also be in the same position. So make sure you have a directional light. Exponential height fog gives you that very cool blue underneath the stage, or underneath rather the world. I prefer having that on myself. And the other is the sky atmosphere. Everything looks a little bit dull and scary without that. There's also the clouds, which you can turn on and off. That's kind of like the 4th secret one that I like having, if you like clouds. Underneath, we have the details. When you have a specific object selected, for example, this cube right here, we can actually look at the details to see where it is, which this is its X, Y, and Z location, its rotation, which X roll, Y pitch, and then Z is yaw. Very fun words. And then its scale, which if we wanted to scale it up, we could just drag these values out right here. There's also movability. So if you want an object to be static and unmoving, you can do that. You can make an object stationary, which means that it can be changed in game but not moved. And then movable, if something is has physics on it, it'll be a movable object, which you'll notice when I play this game, I can run into all these blocks and hit them, so that's why they need to be set to move. There's a lot of different properties about each instance of an actor on the screen. We have the static mesh, which we can change. We have the material. Right now it's solid blue, but we can actually change this to any other material you want. Now it's pink. Look at that. This simulate physics. If we turn that off, then we won't actually be simulating physics on this object, which means we can't actually move it anymore. And enabling it again just re-enables that it's a movable object. So you don't have to go back and turn on movable. Great thing to do. There's lots of different settings here. I'm not going to go into depth about all of them, but that is right now the very basics about the Unreal 4 UI. Does anyone have any questions so far? Great. So I guess one thing I should also talk about at the top, there's this little play button. This lets you actually play the game. So if you wanted to test out the current scene you're working on, you just hit that play button. If you ever wanted to stop it, you just hit escape. You could also hit this red button right here, but if you're playing the game, you'll notice I can't really get my mouse out, so you have to hit Shift and then F1 to re-get your mouse control. You can stop the simulation. You can also press this button or F8. This will actually detach you from the character you're playing as. So now I'm basically in the editor while playing the game. And the game is still running, so things could still be happening on screen. But say I wanted to just move this object around. Now I can move that, press F8 to get back into playing my character. And now it's over here. So that covers just about the basics. couple of things about blueprints. So this is going to be every single thing in Unreal is an object. Everything that's in a scene is an actor. So if you can place it down, it's an actor. If it exists, it's an object. For example, let's see, everything has a game mode. Actually, if we go back to over here, to the classes, this right here is a class that is the game mode, which dictates the rules for the level that we're currently in. You can have a default game mode that applies to all different maps, or you could just have specific ones for specific levels. So if you're making a game that has different game modes and you want each of them to dictate different settings of the world, that's where you'd have this, and that is an object. But for example, this cube or the platform, even this player start object, that is an actor. So if you ever have something on the scene and you want to try and reference it in code, you could always cast it to an actor. We'll be talking a little bit more about casting and what that exactly is. If you've done basic coding, you'll recognize this word. So one of the cool things, there's different, I didn't talk about this top bar right here. There's a lot of different things here that you can actually use to modify the scene and make everything easier. There's also some neat keybinds. If you press Q, you'll actually go to the select objects mode. So I can just start selecting objects. I might not necessarily want to move them around. I just want to select them, maybe edit the details a little bit. If you press W right next to Q, that's where you can start moving around objects. So click on an object, find its pivot point, and you can actually just move it around. So I want to move this cube, grab either the Y value, which is the green one, the X one, or the Z. So if I want to move up and down. Unreal actually uses Z up. So this can be a little bit confusing when exporting 3D models, which use Y up. I think 3ds Max uses Y up, so it can be a little bit of a pain in the ass when exporting one to the other. If you press E, you can change to rotate. So if we want to rotate this cube around, we can do that. We can rotate it on each one of its axes. And if we press E, sorry, we just hit E, but if we press R, we can change into scaling. So now I can make this bigger, smaller. I can scale just one part of it, both multiple parts. You'll see there's like this little line between two different axes. If you want to scale two at the same time, you can grab that. If you want to scale all three, you'll grab the center. The same works for all the other tools. As in, if I grab the middle, I can kind of just move it along every single plane. It's a little bit less intuitive with movement tool. So one of the other things you'll notice is this right here. This cycles between changing things from locally to, I guess, like the world view. So if we have this on local, which is the one with the square right here, we'll see it's relative to the pivot and rotation of the actual cube itself. Change it to world. Now it's just to the world coordinates, which again, Z is always up, Y is over there to the right, and X is forward. So we can just move this along. And then if we're like, okay, actually we want to rotate this locally, we'll go up locally to this object. We can do that here. And again, Control Z just undoes everything. Very useful. There's this one which is snapping to surface. So if you want objects to snap to the surface when you move them around, you can grab them and do that. Another cool keybind for that, if you don't want it snapping all weird, is grabbing the object, pressing the end key, and it snaps to the surface of an object or of another planar object. So, welcome. So, one other thing you might notice, when we move around objects or rotate them, rotating, you can clearly see it, we can only rotate in increments of 10 degrees. If we want to turn that off, we can see right here, this enables or disables snapping objects to a rotation grid. So if I no longer want to rotate it by 10 degrees, I want to rotate it very minutely, I can do that here. I can also just go into the rotation here and just press, 34 degrees. I want to rotate it 34 degrees. You can do that. If you ever wanted to undo, there's this little back arrow right here. It resets the property back to 0, 0, 0. Same with scaling. Now it's a cube again. And now with location, it's moved over here. If you press F, you can actually zoom into the object itself. So now I'm going to move this object back over here, move it up, press End, snap down to the plane. Great. And again, you can do the same with scaling right here. Turn it on or off. I usually leave it on unless I want to do some fine tuning, then I turn it off myself. This right here is your camera speed, which this controls how fast you move around. If you hold right click, you can start moving around like I am and use WASD to actually move your camera around. E makes it go up, Q makes it go down, and then WASD makes it move forward, backwards, left and right. If you scroll in, you'll notice that number is increasing. That means I can go really fast. And I'm like, okay, this is too much. I can scroll down and then I'll start moving slower and slower and slower, where now I'm like barely moving at all. I usually use this if there's something on another side of my scene that I want to mess with. Just again, scroll in, now you can move really fast, scroll out, now you can move really slow, especially if you want to do one of those more fine, precise movements. So there's also different viewports you can use.
For more precise movements, isn't there also alt clicking?
Yes. So, oh God. Sorry, I don't know why I did that. I hate doing this.
I think I use that more than anything else.
Yeah. Here we go. Oh shit. Well, could you explain exactly what you mean then?
I don't even remember. It's most softwares you can do alt and then some form of clicking, but I might just be deleting them.
I know it's Unreal at least, because I don't really use alt clicking that much myself. If you hold alt and then drag something, I know you can duplicate it.
Yeah, I might just be thinking about it.
Well, one of the things with that, if you press alt and then grab the middle thing and hold the mouse button, you can actually, well, or just grab any of the anchors, you can move the pivot point around. This will help if you want to grab something. Say this cube, I'm like, okay, I want to move the pivot point to the corner, so it's a bit easier to edit with. You hold alt, move it down to the corner, and then now when you scale up from different directions, it'll scale from that pivot point. Mine's not perfectly on, so the bottom's scaling a little bit as well. But, sorry, do you have a question?
Can you snap or no?
Yes, there's snapping to surface, which is just pressing N, that'll drag it down. There's this setting right here, which lets you snap to surface. Sometimes it's a little wonky, but basically I'm like, okay, I want this to snap to the surface. If you grab the middle, I think it'll snap by the, like.
Can you snap the pivot?
Hmm?
Can you snap the pivot to like the corner?
Yes, I'm not entirely sure about that. Pivot, I know you can set the pivot. I'm not sure if there's a way to snap the pivot to, oh no, wait, here it is, right. I don't use this enough. Again, I'm bad at editing the pivot. You guys are gonna call me out all night today, I know it. So, no, I appreciate it, please do. So yeah, if you wanted to snap your pivot to the floor, oh no, that does that, never mind. I'm so sorry. But again, press Alt, you can move the pivot around. If you wanted to save the pivot as where it is, you can click on Set Pivot Offset, and you'll notice that the pivot is now set there if I click off and back on, but it doesn't change the pivot of all the other objects that were the same type as this one. This sets just this specific one. So now I'm going to just talk a little bit about blueprints. There's a lot to do with blueprints. There's a lot you can do. So I'm going to go into content. I'm going to actually just go straight into the third person character, just because there's already some great blueprint code here. If you ever get this where it's like, oh man, this is only some of the data, just click this open full blueprint editor. Here we go. I'm also going to drag it and snap it to the main like window for the level, so I'm not opening new tabs for each of these. What's up?
How did you get there?
I went to the blueprint, I double clicked the third person character, and now I can open the blueprint right here. So one of the things, which this is probably my bad, I probably shouldn't have done it this way. Because we did C++, the code for the actual character is going to be in the C++ classes. So this is like the actual code for the character for moving around, which if we go to, oh yeah, let's allow all the access. You can see this is where all the code is. I'm actually going to probably open up a different blueprint and or a different project to show off the blueprint code. But just to modify the character itself right here, this is the character blueprint. There's a lot of things you can do in blueprint. It's very cool. On the left side, you'll see the components that represent the actual character itself. So here we have the root object. We have underneath the capsule component, which this is for its collisions. This arrow right here, which is like, this is for the showing the front of the other. So you want to have, like if your mesh was not facing the right way, usually when you put in your meshes, they might be facing like to the side. You want to face it towards the front of the actual object where it's going to be spawn facing. We have this camera, which as in when we start playing the game and you see we are the camera right now, we're moving around. We are the camera component right here. And there's the character movement component, which dictates a lot of settings for the actual character's movement, which are in the details on the right. Much like how in the map we have the details pane right here, Blueprint, we have the exact same thing, so we can start editing specific properties about each of these objects. So underneath that, we have my Blueprint. This dictates basically, there's the events and functions and macros, variables, event dispatchers that we all have in these Blueprint classes. So here we have the construction script. If you've ever programmed before, it's much like every other construction script. You can set some default variables. This is before the actor actually gets created into the world. Event begin play is after it's been created into the world. So if we want right when this character spawns in, we want to just print something, we can right click, which brings up this menu right here, which lets us actually do different functions. There's a lot of different functions here that we can do. But if you just hit type search, you can just start typing print. We can print string or print text. Usually we just use print string. We can click on this little in string right here and then do hello workshop. You also see that this says development only. This basically means that when we actually build this for shipping, when we're actually building like a game, this code will not get run. They won't see the print statements that pop up. So we can hit play right here, which will actually open a little window. Or if we go back to the map, we can play it like I was doing earlier. But here I can click on, don't know if you noticed, but there in the top left, right when the event begin ran, when the player spawned in, it said hello workshop. If we want to change some specific settings about the print statement, we could actually just look here. We could change the text color, we could change the duration, so you want to go for 10 seconds. Also, you'll need to compile your Blueprint. If you hit play, it'll try to auto-compile, but sometimes you need certain things to compile in certain orders, and it might yell at you. So again, just remember to compile after making changes to your Blueprint. Go back here, hit play again. Hello workshop weekend, and that should stay there for 10 seconds. Great. So going back here, there's a couple of things that I want to talk about. There's lots of different functions that we have. Obviously, we have all of these here. Context sensitive is checked, which means that it's functions that we actually can call. For example, this actor event overlap, this gives me the other actor when I overlap with another actor. So because context sensitive is checked off, I'll only get functions that actually work with this other actor variable. So just to go quickly over, this is a pin. So this is the actual variable that is coming from this event. For example, event tick gets ran every frame. It's very cool, very nice. The delta seconds is the amount of time between frames. So if I wanted to, I could type print here. Right now it's in the duration slot, which we don't want that. We want it to actually be the string. So one thing we can do is if we hit Alt and then click, we can actually get rid of the connection between something. Another thing we can do is hold Control and then drag the pin, and then I'll actually move it to another location. And right here, this is just a converter, converts a double to a string. So now every single frame that the character is alive, every single tick, it'll print out the time that it took between. So it's saying it's taking 0.01 seconds between every single frame. Very nice, very nice. What's up? So, as many of you know and have if you've programmed before, there's a lot of different things for kind of flow control. We're going to talk about that really quickly. So one of the big things is if statements. If one thing happens, do this, and if something else happens, do that. So you can type if in, and then you'll get branch. But yeah, if statements here are called branches. One of the other things, this little thing right here is called an execution pin. You can connect this to another node, and then it'll run that node in sequence. So this first node event begin play, we'll call this branch node right here. And the condition right here, I can either set manually, or I can pass in a variable, and that will be, that'll then run the branch and say, okay, should true run or should false run? So if this is true, I might print just a string that says true. And if this is false, I might just do the same thing, say false. So now if I ran this, true, we're getting true printed in the top left. Uncheck that, false. Ooh. Now obviously manually doing it ourselves is a pain in the ass. So, can I swear, Nick? Okay. I've already done it, yeah, sorry about that. It's my one swear. Okay, let's get the shit done. So if you press, we have variables right here on the left side. There's variables which we can use to say we want to get a Boolean, so we want to get this branch statement to run on its own based on something else, or based on a certain variable that I have in this character. So it's true. Let's make that the variable. Here on the right side on this details panel, we can see the variable name, which we can change right here. Or we can also just click on the left and then change the name as well. We have the variable type, which if we click on that dropdown, we can actually change it to a bunch of different variable types. Here are some of the basic ones. We can expand to a bunch of different structures, interfaces, object types, and enums. So if I had a specific object that I created, I could actually just search it here. Like I could say workshop root character and save that as an actual variable. And I can either save an object reference, a class reference, soft object reference, or a soft class reference. But for now, we're just going to leave it as a Boolean. This little value on the right, which looks like a little pill, we can actually change it. So we can have either an array, or we can have a set or a map. If you've ever programmed before, you should know what this is. This should be familiar to you. Arrays are great, sets are also great, maps are also great, but just a single variable, also great, small and mighty. So you can add a description to this variable as well. So if you wanted to remember what each variable does, you could just add it right here. And, it's perfect. Now you get, whenever you use the variable, you can see just the description if you wanted to know. Instance editable basically means, can we edit this actor in the actual scene, or this variable in the actual scene? So if we turn this on, you'll notice this I right here goes on and off. And actually turn this on and off. Turning this off does not mean the variable is private. It's very big difference. Setting it to private means that other actors, if they ever were referencing this character, they would not be able to access it. But if this is off, so it's not private, it's public, then anything can see that. And again, instance editable just means if we had turned this on and we had the actual character right here, we can, first let me compile. We can find the actual variable. I wonder if this is going to be a pain in the ass to me, actually. But, I know, that's the C++ class, that's why. So, if we actually drag out, whoops, the character right here, and not this one, because this one is not the right one. I'm going to delete that. We can actually go and find the variable that is that Boolean that we had, which is right here. The default values of this actor. So we can have multiple actors with different variables and change them depending on what they're on the scene. If you have like some enemies or something that you want just spawned, you can change the variables that they currently have just within the scene itself. So I can check this, and then, this player, when we have event begin, will either go true or false, depending on whatever we set this variable to be. If we want here, read is true. Right now, the default value is false. So this character spawned with player start, which is the character that we're playing as. Its default value is false. Here we have it set to true, so we should see printed false and true. false being my character right now and true being the other one up there. I'm just gonna delete that character right now. So there's a couple other things you can do. Just talking more about kind of flow control. There are switch statements, which you'd usually switch on like some type of enum or something like that. Here we have just a bunch of kind of built-in ones. And you can add different pins depending on like different cases. So then you can change here like the pin name. So if I wanted to go based off of some string value, you can pass it into here. Hello. And then kind of change each case to be, maybe this is hello. And this one is goodbye. And then there's the default, just like how if something was passed in that wasn't that exact variable. So it can connect these two execution pins here. Depending on the switch statement, it can do whatever you want it to, whether it prints something. You can add as many pins as you want. If you wanted to remove a pin, you can right click it, remove the execution pin. Just get rid of all of them if you want to. So in addition, we have some loops as well. Let's say I had just an array. We're going to call it my array right now. We're going to change this to integer, make this an array, and we're going to pull out this array right here. So one of the things you can do is actually run on an array, or just like a collection of objects, a for loop. This is a for each loop rather. You can do either just a normal for each loop, or you can do a, actually just, oops, sorry about that. Don't know what that did. Oh, that was one of the things I wanted to show off as well, which I probably should have shown off. You can very easily have everything just go to shit with blueprints, so please organize. This is just kind of an example of what you might expect on your traditional 4,000 project. Roderick over there can tell you a little bit about that. Tell him about the item code, Roderick. So make sure you organize your blueprint code. It'll help everyone in the long run. One of the big things you can do is actually add comments. If you highlight a certain amount of things and press C, it'll just give you a comment. And you can click on the comment, change the text. This does something cool. You're going to connect these execution pin. It'll run through each of these. Or if I want to do a for each loop with a break, it's again very similar to this. It'll run the for each loop. Can go through the loop body, which does something. Once this finishes, or like it'll run each loop on its own, and then I can either pull out the array element or the array index. The array element just being the integer from my array that we're currently on. And then the array index being the index of that value in the array. Once the loop finishes executing, it'll run this completed pin right here. And say if some certain thing about this element, say we wanted to check, which I just hit equals, if we wanted to check if this equaled the value 2, and again, I would drag this Boolean off. I could just type branch or if. Connect this here. Say if it's true, I want to break the loop. Right now that looks a little bit stupid because you see this line just going back. It's very easy for lines to get kind of disorganized. Which again, also to break that loop or that execution pin, I just hit Alt and clicked on the pin. I could drag this over and then double click and I add a reroute node. Reroute nodes are your friends, please use them. So now I can make my code look a little bit more readable. And if false, I don't want to do anything. I don't have to connect this pin to anything. I can just have it do nothing. So I'm just going to remove this for each loop right here. Delete it, move this here. I can actually grab the comment and expand it over all of this stuff right here. There's actually a plugin called Auto Resize Comments. It is very useful, very nice. I would highly recommend it. So you can attach actually certain nodes to certain to comment blocks, and it'll automatically organize itself.
If you move the comment, does it move the notes?
Yeah. Well, let's do that. Let's find out. Yes, it does.
Because Unity Visual Script did that too, so I was just.
Yeah. If I drag this away, it'll disconnect from it, and now it no longer moves with it, which can be a pain to do. So yeah, this is one of the very nice things is I can just grab this comment and move it around if I wanted to reorganize my code. If I wanted to have like one of the big things is say I had like a section for all of my movement code. I could just grab this here and then place all my nodes in here, have them run by themselves, and then drag it around, move it, organize it however I want to. So now I can look at my array. You also see because I didn't compile the blueprint, I can't actually add any default values. So hit compile. Now you can see my arrays here. I'll just add a bunch of numbers. And on the second element, I'll have, or rather the third element, I'll have 2 there. So now if I compile again and hit play, we get hello print 3 times, which makes sense for our logic. We ran through the first element, it printed hello. It's false because it didn't equal 2. Second element, hello. Third element printed hello, saw it was true, broke the loop, and then it went to this completed thing, which actually, just to showcase that off, just gonna have this print completed afterwards. Again, really simple. Hello, 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 completed. The print statements actually go bottom to top. The bottom is the most recent one. If you ever wanted to see what you did print, you can look at the output log down here. You can see that it printed hello 3 times. You can also hit the little tilde button, and this will pull up your console. You can actually run some functions here. So if I wanted to do like show collisions, oh, I just hit escape like an idiot. Hit that little tilde key, the one next to 1. If you hit it once, you'll see the little console thing pop up on the bottom, and I can just start typing. Hit it twice, you can actually see the output log, and like all the print statement stuff that I printed out. Show collision, boom. I'm gonna hit tilde again. Now I can see all the different collisions of all the different objects on this screen, including my own. And yeah, very, very cool stuff.
Doesn't lag your game.
What's up?
When it doesn't lag your game.
Yeah, dude. In bigger projects, oh god, it gets laggy. So now I'm gonna actually just talk about creating blueprints. So if you right click on the content browser, right here, you can see that you can either import an object, add a feature content pack, add some Quixel content. We're not going to talk about that stuff. You can make a new folder, which if you're organizing your code, I'd recommend having a certain file structure to follow. You can create a blueprint class, a level, a material, or something with the Niagara system. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right. But if I just hit blueprint class, I can see the most common classes that are used, a little description on the right. If I click this question mark, I can open the documentation. It'll just take me straight to the website. Very nice. Or I can all classes, and now I can scroll through all 694 different classes I can make. That sounds very intimidating, but there'll be a lot of basic ones you use, a lot of ones that you won't really interact with whatsoever. So if I wanted to, I know character is already there, but I could just search character, and then I can see, okay, we have the hierarchy. You see character inherits from prompt, inherits from actor, which inherits from object. And then there are different types of characters we can try to make. We have our workshop weekend character, which we already had created. And then this BP third person character, which was created from that C++ class of the workshop weekend character. So I just want to make a character, can hit select, and that'll create a new character right here. And I can name this whatever I want. Great. And if I double click it, now I can open it. I have a character. This is fantastic. So basics of a character is it has a movement component. It has like the little arrow showing what's forward. It has a mesh, which I can actually add myself if I wanted to. Right here, we have this skeletal mesh. Here, you might sometimes not see anything there. If you just hit this little gear right here, you can click on these content buttons. Usually plugin, engine, and developers are all disabled, but if you enable those, then you can actually see like all of these like tutorial TPP. So now I have this character right here, and I'm gonna rotate him so he's facing forwards. And he's looking in the direction of the arrow. You might notice that he's like not in line with the collision box. So I might just move him down a little bit. You know, fantastic. Look how swag he looks. And you can also add an animation class. Right now, I don't have one created for him. So if I try to use a different characters, most likely won't work. You can change the character material. And if the material doesn't like properly align with some characters, you might notice it looks a little funky. And again, the movement around is the same that I use in the level editor. Right click to kind of move my camera around. WASD to move around, Q to go down, E to go up, and shift if I want to just like stop on a dime. So, oop. Did not mean to close that, but here we go. So now I have this character right here. Very cool. I'm actually not going to be using him for now. Just want to talk about a couple of other things. Go back through my loop. A couple more flow control stuff, just to get these out of the way. So obviously there's for loops, as you might expect. There's also while loops. They rely on a condition. So if I had this is true variable here, have it go in, oops, not alt, there we go. Have this run on event begin play. It'll keep running the loop body until this is true variable is set to false, which I can then through something in while loop set to false. It'll go out of the completed pin once it's done. There's also a couple of neat things here. We have do once. That's not the exact one I want to pull up. There's a couple of different do onces, but we're going to do once right here. We can have something go in here. It'll execute this once, and then it won't execute it again. So if we wanted to have some piece of code only run one time, pass it through here, it'll pass out a completed, and it'll only open itself up to have that thing happen again if you hit reset. So we could have something like if you have an ability charging and you want it run based off of some variable, although you could just use a branch statement for this. If you wanted to make sure you could do once, and then once some other piece of code activates, then it'll reset this do once, so you can do that thing again. There's also delays which you can add. We could just right click and search up delay, and that'll give us a duration. So if we wanted something to wait to execute, for example, for our very basic having something print, run this into the delay, make this wait about 2 seconds, and then it'll actually do something. Hello, look at that delay, fantastic. You can also just press D and then click, and that'll give you a delay. Just to keep going through some other stuff. I didn't talk much about this, but events are very nice and very handy. All of these are events. There's begin overlap, there's begin play, there's event tick. There's a lot more events that we can actually have and add to our to our blueprint event graph. We have these functions here, which there's actually a lot of different functions already built into the character. So can jump. This is a function right here. We can look at this function can jump and see what it does. We can override them if we wanted to make our own custom functions. I'll actually close that right here. We have macros, which macros take in different inputs and outputs. Macros are similar to functions, but you can have delays. Functions, you cannot have delays in them. But yeah, macros, there are already some built-in macros into Unreal, and you'd have to like manually add execution pins. So if you wanted this to be something that can be executed or something that's done beforehand, you could do that. Macros are very cool. Event dispatchers, I'm not going to talk about. I don't need to know about those right now. But just to, I want to talk about just getting some basic interaction done. So one of the things I'm going to do is we're going to mess with inputs. So there's actually a couple different ways you can do it. I'm going to close out of this macro right here, and we're gonna just remove like all of this. So one of the things I could just do, which is very simple, just keyboard, and then say I wanted to press every time I press E or something like that, or I could just like look for the key myself. Now every time we press this key, it'll do something. We could just have it like print. This is very simple. Now I press E, every time I press it, it prints hello. That's really cool, but there's not a lot that I can really do with that, and it's not great to be doing this for your own programming. One of the other ways, if we actually go to edit, and then I believe project settings, you can do input and then use these action and axis mappings. These are actually deprecated, so I wouldn't recommend using these. I'd recommend using the enhanced input system, but very basic. Action mapping. We could have it be whatever we want it to, like say jump, which is spelled weird. Press space, or I could just search up the key, and you can also look for a lot of different platforms. So every time space is pressed, maybe I want shift and space press, control alt, whatever. Excuse me, it just passes in the value. I believe it passes the Boolean with it as well. And then there's axis mappings, which I might use more for looking around. So say I just did the mouse and then did X, Y. Or just X rather. I can see the scale and then say, okay, when it's X in the positive direction, it'll be a 1, negative, it'll be -1. We're gonna actually use the enhanced input system, which I find really, really cool. So we already have it existing right here, but if you right click, I didn't talk about this, but scrolling down, there's actually lots of different blueprint classes that are built in right here, so you don't have to go through and searching for all of them. So I could actually scroll through and go to input, and then there's input action and input mapping context. Right now, I'm just gonna use input action, and I'm gonna call this interact. Say we just want a basic interact function. And actually move this, oh, not copy here, I wanna move there. Okay. So yeah, so here we have different input actions that already are built into the character that allow it to look around, move, and jump. But we want interact to be here. Double click this. We can actually change the value that this input action gives. So I want it to be just a Boolean. You interact, and either you are interacting or not. I don't need there to be like some float, vector, 2D, or just a vector passed in. You could change triggers. So how does this actually get triggered? I might do press, so when I click it, it only interacts once, and I don't have it being triggered multiple times. There's also modifiers. You can modify the value that is returned or given. I'm not going to mess with that right now. And then here we have the mapping context, which basically just holds all the different input actions. So if we look here, we can see, okay, jump is tied to the space bar. If I was on a phone, I could just touch the screen, or I can press the gamepad bottom button. Very cool. There's moving around WASD. I can also use the arrow keys that's shown right here. And then there's looking around, which is the mouse and the right thumbstick. So I want to add another one right now. We're going to call this input action interact. I'm going to make this just go to E. And again, I can just do that this is pressed. Great. So hopefully now I'm going to get into cooler stuff, because this has been a lot of just introduction to what is blueprints. So now I can actually try to pull up IA and have interact. Let's say I wanted to just see if this is actually happening. There's different execution bins that'll happen depending on what is the stage of the current input. So say we had like a corded action, or say we wanted like something where you press the button 3 times. You'll see when it's triggered, when it's like when someone starts to try and do this input, see if it's been started, if it's ongoing, if it's something that's being held down, you'll see that it's ongoing. If the button was canceled, so say I clicked twice and then didn't do it, now it's canceled. Or if it's completed, if it actually successfully completed the action. Here's the action value right here, which is, again, I had it set as a Boolean, so we're gonna get a Boolean out. But say I just wanted to do every single time I press E, again, we're going with very simple, we're just printing out stuff. But now every time I press E, here we go. So now I don't have to use like the keyboard button. So right now, let's say I want to make an object. It's going to be an actor that I can actually interact with. Just going to go into our character right here. I'm going to create another blueprint class. I'm going to call this an actor. And I'm just going to say, we're going to call this item 1. So again, I have the viewport right here so I can look at the actual object. I want to add a component to it. If I wanted to add different components to different blueprints, I can click on this top left right here, hit add. I just want to add a cube. So this is the actual mesh itself. And I also want a way to actually interact with this object myself. So I'm going to give it a collision. I'm going to give it a collision sphere. And you can't really see it. Why? It's because it's small. So we're going to expand it with the scale tool. Or I could just go right here on the right in the details pane and change the sphere radius. So I'm not scaling it. So now I want to have, whenever we overlap this actor, I want to interact with it. So, oops. Also another thing, in the character, I can actually look up all the events that are here. If I wanted to make my own custom event, I can just add a custom event that can get triggered by another class or anything else. So right now I want to just say when actor begin overlap. So if I'm overlapping with another actor, I want to then run some code. So I want to, whenever I overlap with this item, I want to interact with it. Let's actually do sorry, give me a moment right here. That's not exactly what I wanted to do. Right, never mind. We're just gonna do this. Okay. So I want to interact with this object. One of the things I can do is check the other actor that I'm interacting with. So let's actually first put this actor down. I drop BP item here. I'm gonna move it up, hit N, snap it to the floor. Of course, it's gonna do it like that. So let me drag it up a little bit. Now, one of the things I can do is have that when I hit interact and I am overlapping another object, that I want to trigger the interact function that I have. So say let's use actually a gate for this. So gates are really cool. There's entering, exiting, opening and closing it, and then toggling it. So say every time we overlap another actor, we want to open the gate and close it. And then whenever we press E, we're going to enter the gate. So basically with this, if we're overlapping another actor, that will toggle the gate open. Actually, rather, I want to instead use, instead of course, it's like lagging on me. I want to open it whenever we begin overlap. And then event on end overlap. And okay. Here we go. End overlap. I want to close the gate. So now one of the things I can do is basically I want to get the other actor that we're overlapping with and say I want to check that this actor is my BP item 1. One of the things we can do is cast to BP item 1. Now this right now is not very efficient. It's not very great because say we have a lot of different items we want to interact with. This will not really work for us. So say we have like item 2, item 3, item 4, then I'd have to check, okay, this failed. All right, then let's cast to BP item 2, and then let's cast to BP item 3. That's a lot to check for. So there will be a simpler way to do that, which I'll go over in a second. I know we're running short on time. I apologize. So, yeah, Nick, start yelling at me if I need to like get off. Okay. So, if this is successful, then I want to get this actor and I want to just destroy it. Just get rid of it. Don't need it anymore. And hopefully I actually did this code right because I will cry if I didn't. Oop. Ugh, probably not. Okay. So let's first just double check that this is working. This is debugging. This is great. I feel like I'm using the wrong event overlap thing. Jay, can you check on that? So I think I'm trying to look for the component overlap. I think that's what my thing is.
Yeah, because I'm guessing you would just take the component and drag it.
Yeah, I mean, I can use the capsule.
This is
Is the collision
Oh,
like
here we go.
array that,
This is what I need. I need overlapping on the capsule.
yeah,
For sure. So yeah, one of the things that I did wrong is I want to actually check if we're overlapping the capsule component of the character with something else. So here I can see, okay, we have the other actor. We're going to pass this into here, this reroute node. And again, from this reroute node, I can actually connect multiple different things. So if I wanted to like cast to something else, you can look at that. Very nice.
how do you make it out again?
Just double click. So double click, you can make as many as you want. And then again, I can just disconnect them with all. So now here I'm like, okay, on begin overlap of the capsule, I want to open this. And now I also want to add the event, which I can click on the capsule, add event on component end overlap. We're just going to close. Here we go. Oh, and I'd also connected this to cancel. So that also could have been another reason why this wasn't working. And again, organizing blueprints is so important, but I'm going to talk a little bit about that if I have enough time about a super easy way to organize blueprints. I want to see the murder sim code really badly.
So half of the code was deprecated, but was not deleted or marked as it.
Oh, great. So you saw that? It just deleted itself. I walked up to it. We overlapped it. The gate is now open, so I can actually press E, and it cast it to an item, and it just deleted it. So let's like duplicate this. Let's make like a BP item 2, right? That's crazy. So now in my original code, I'm actually going to pull this over here. We're going to drag this up. We're going to just move this over here, right? And I'm like, okay, interact with that. It deletes itself. I'm interacting with this one. It's another item, but nothing's happening. So kind of a pain. And I don't want to, I hate the zoom thing. Go away. I'd hate to have to keep casting every single time to every single type of object in my game. That seems very expensive. Casting is very expensive. You shouldn't be doing this a lot. If I always knew that this was going to be a BP item one of the cool things you could do is actually convert to a pure cast. So now it's like we already know this is going to succeed, so it'll go there, but it'll print if it's a success or not. But we're not going to do that. We're going to leave this as just a normal cast. I want to now have all of my items to have this certain ability to be able to be interacted with. So what can I do? I can right click, and if we look through all these different blueprint classes, which again, there's a lot here. We go to blueprint, we can see an interface. Has anyone ever used an interface before? Excuse one, there we go. Interfaces are really cool. So say I wanted this to just be BP items, or even I could just make that even more simpler. Interactable. So now I can have this function, which I'm going to call interact. And I'm not going to give it any inputs, not going to give it any outputs. But now I have this function called interact. Interact is very cool, as in if I have any single thing in my game that I can interact with, whether it's an item or a door or something that might not have the same exact line of code, I could just call this interact function. So I can go here, no longer going to cast this. I am going to use this other actor though. So I want to cast or use the function interact. I'm going to send a message. So what this is basically doing is it's saying, hey, I'm going to send this interact message to this other actor. It might succeed, it might not, it might work, it might not work. But regardless, I have tried to interact with this item that I am currently overlapping with. So say BP item 1, we're going to go here. And we actually want to give this object the interact interface. So I believe we could go to class settings right here, this top bar. There's down here, inherited interfaces. We're going to add BP underscore interactable. Look at that. So now that we have this, we need to actually call the function for that. So I'm going to double click this, or you could just right click and then just type like the interact event. Oof. And remember to look between the difference of this is the message that you're going to send to someone else, and this is the actual function within the class. So again, message, we'll send it to someone else. The event is actually what's going to be called whenever it receives that message. So now I can move all the code outside of my character because I don't want my item code. Oh, what was that? Go away. If I don't want all my item code to be within the actual character itself, right, Roger? We want to move it to the actual item itself. So on this interact function, I can now just destroy actor, and by default, it's going to be self. So it's going to destroy itself. Now, say with item 2, I'm like, oh, but I don't want to destroy item 2. I want to have item 2 do something else. I'm going to double click item 2. I'm going to open it, go to its class settings, give it this BP interactable. So now this item can be interacted with. We're going to, again, I can just simply double click this, get the event interact. And I just want this to just print something. Actually, we'll add impulse to itself. We'll add it to the cube. We'll just give this like a bunch of stuff, a bunch of values. Add a lot of impulse, you know? And I'm gonna pray this actually works because we'll see. I'm gonna save everything. One thing, Control Shift S saves the whole project. Or I can press Control S to save right there. Or I can click on this, and then it'll bring up a little menu where, say I want to like do something here. Oh, okay. It's unsaved. Click here. I can see all the things that I want to save. Check on and off which ones I want to save. Save selected. Boom. What's up?
Traumas from setting up.
So now I'm going to go back into the map. I'm going to, let's see, have this actor at my item. Very cool, very nice. It's item 2, and then I have my item 1. So I'm going to go here, interact with this item 1, then item 2. I think because it's not, yeah, it doesn't have simulate physics added to add impulse. That's what I was trying to find right here. I think I need to go actually into the item itself, go to the class, and then simulate that class settings. Physics, oh boy. I don't know if that's exactly what I'm looking for, but either way. Very cool, very nice. Now they each do different things. Due to the warnings, you can kind of just see like that it's actually doing something. It's kind of the best I can give you right now. Delete that and click this, and now I hit hello. So now these objects have 2 different things, even though they're both just being interacted with like normal. Fantastic. So there's a couple of other types of variables or types of blueprints, like how we have this interface right here. If we go to blueprint, there's a macro library and a function library. So if you want to have a library, just a bunch of different functions, library, a bunch of different macros, you could do that. You could do enumerations, which enumerations, if you ever use an enum, self-explanatory. Structures or structs, if you wanted to have a bunch of different variable types for a specific structure, say you have some dialogue class or something, and you want to save all the data in a struct, you can store like a dialogue, maybe the dialogue sound that goes with it, maybe the color or something that goes with that dialogue specifically. You can do all of that. I guess the last thing I want to talk about is plugins, because plugins are very cool. I have my own plugins downloaded, but none of them are enabled. So if I go to edit and I go to plugins, again, it brings up another window. These are all the different plugins that are currently within the project. Not all of them are enabled, or rather that are currently in the editor. So we have a lot of different stuff here. Right now, I believe I have 4 plugins downloaded into the editor. Bless you. So I have Blueprint Assist. This one is very nice. It's paid for, but it's very nice at letting you organize blueprints. It's going to ask you whenever you enable any plugin to restart your editor, and it'll just restart that level that you were currently working on. So we're going to wait a second. Hope you guys like the background, by the way. Love it. Very nice. And now we're back in. We can go back to that plugin, just double check. Okay, Blueprint Assist, now it's enabled. Has this documentation there. support. This is all what the person who made the plugin can kind of put in. And now, one of the neat things about this one is it actually has ways to organize your blueprint code. So I'm like, man, this all looks like shit. I can just press F and then organize it. Again, this is a paid for plugin, so you don't have to actually buy this. It's just highly recommended, especially if you work with people who can't format their code. Just tell them like, okay, just press F and then we'll organize the whole thing from there. Makes everything very nice. There's a lot of built-in plugins. Again, you can take a look at this yourself. We're gonna go through all the different plugins here if you have specific needs. If you ever wanted to download your own plugins, just gonna run through that really quick. You can either go to the marketplace and find some plugin, or you could already have something downloaded. You can see if you click on there, there's the install to engine plugins. So I have auto size commands. That's another one I really recommend. And here down here is where you have all your different plugins. If I had any like asset kind of libraries, I can add them to my project. I could also, some of them are creating projects. So it's like I can create this melee combat like asset myself that I downloaded online, and I can just install it straight into my engine. So say with this one, I want to install this into 5.2. You can hit the drop down, hit install. It'll add it to the engine right here. And then whenever I launch a project, I just have to go in here, make sure to enable the plugin. Now I can use that plugin. Plugins can either have like a bunch of different functions or different functionality. Yes.
Each time there's a new version, like, because you just talked about 5.3 being released, do you have to wait for the plugin to be updated for that, or?
Yes. Plugins, they update, like the people who make them update them. For example, some plugins might only work for certain versions. You can check on the actual plugin, it's like page right here, right? See, okay, they have one, you can see like reviews and questions people ask about it, but also just going back, I can see like, okay, this is compatible with all these different versions of Unreal. Whenever there's an update for a plugin, you'll see a little exclamation point, and then you can actually just update it just straight away. There is a hacky way of changing the files in your computer to say, hey, you are compatible with 5.3, and it might work, it might not. It'll also yell at you, so don't do that. Recommend just waiting on the plugin to be updated, or talking to, if you wanted to message the person who created the plugin, leave a review, ask a question like, hey, when will this be updated to 5.3? Or do you want to, can you update this down to like 4.27? I want to use that instead. So yeah. Does anyone have any other questions? I think we'll probably wrap it up. That was a lot to talk about. We didn't get into all of the nitty gritty. There's a lot of parts to Unreal Engine, but for the very basics and exploring it, hopefully you should feel a little bit comfortable about navigating the UI and then expanding and exploring on your own.